When I was much younger, um, in college, actually, I was a stagehand, and that's really how I got my start in the professional side of our industry. Is I was a student stagehand. We had a huge roadhouse venue. We had a major theater. We had an arena venue. We had an exhibit hall. We had a couple of smaller theaters. We had multiple places on campus where events could be held. And being a large university, we had a lot of touring groups come through. We had Broadway shows and big musical acts and jazz and dance troops and something every week of the year, often every day of the week. Um, and as a student, you have a lot of free time if you're not, drinking, carousing, or maybe attending class. So it was easy to pick up gigs as a stagehand on these jobs, because just because you're going into a college theater with your national touring act doesn't mean that you don't need help, right? You still need the same head count. You see the same number of people. But very often, I suspect that companies that were coming into these college venues were scared to death of the kind of help they were going to get. Well, that's what I want to talk about today, because we did something at our university, the management did, which was train stagehands. And it was a very simple 1 hour training that really paid off. And I want to talk about that today. And then I want to explain the implications that it has for us and how we function as event production companies going into job sites and getting shows done for our customers. I think you'll enjoy this.
Welcome to your weekly dose of uncommon sense, helpful insights, and tough love. I'm your host, Tom Stimson. The Intentional Success Podcast comes to you through the generous support of Mertz Crew.
Mertz Crew helps top AV companies book quality AV freelancers. Your choice, your rates. We handle contracts, insurance, and payments. You save time, cost, and reduce risk. Start today at mertzcrew.com.
Now on to the show.
So, poor college student, first semester. I mean, what do I need to do? I need money. Now, college was not really expensive when I went to school. A matter of fact, it was ridiculously inexpensive. But you know what? I was ridiculously poor. So the $400 or $500 a month I got from my parents to pay for college, I had to make up all the rest. And there was inclinations to do a lot of jobs, but the thing that was really interesting to me was the ad I saw for stagehand work. So I responded to the ad. You had to go to an orientation session. They would explain the work to you. They would get an eyeball on you, and this was done by the staff, the house staff at the major venue facility, which managed all of the event type work around campus. Now, they had a number of venues themselves that they managed, but basically any other part of campus that needed help with an event, these are the guys would probably come over and do it, or at least figure out how to get it done. So the training was very simple. Again, it's got to be at the college student level because we have a really bad attention span. But the people who didn't pay attention didn't get hired. It was very obvious, as the teacher was instructing us, that the other staff who was standing around was observing who was paying attention, who was asking questions, and who they wanted to work with, because that was going to matter. Now, the first thing they did was explain what happens on a show, and we were having this training on the main stage of the 3,000 seat auditorium, which had a full 80-line fly rig ahead. It was a full service theatrical house. It had all the lighting that you needed, had all the sound that you needed, and it had the orchestra that lifted up and down and moving stage parts and giant dimmers. But they explained that very often these road shows would come in and they have all of their own stuff. They wouldn't actually use the house stuff other than the fly system, which was to hang their scenery or hang their lights or whatever it is that they needed to do. So we're on this stage and they're explaining what happens. You're going to come to work and you're going to come to the stage door where you're told to show up, and you're going to walk past one or two tour buses, which is where the act and or the crew are sleeping. And you will see that there are probably a couple of trucks in the dock, maybe a couple more trucks waiting, big, 48-foot trailers. And these people, they said, are going to roll out of bed 5 minutes before call time. They're going to come in and use the inside bathrooms, and they're going to drag themselves to the back dock, and they're going to say, "Who are my hands?" And they're going to put you to work. And they expect you to know what to do. So the first thing they had to teach us was how to unload a truck. Well, before we get into that, because the thing that was explained to us is that unloading the truck and loading the truck is actually the most dangerous part of any event setup. It's not flying stuff overhead. It's not pushing things up ramps. It's getting things on and off of trucks. And that it was a choreography that the traveling crew had practiced many times, and there was a very specific way to do it, and they were going to direct you on how to do it. They were going to tell you exactly where to stand, where to put your hands on the case. You were often lifting large cases over your head and then teetering them down and standing them up, or moving them onto another case and staging them down. And the whole choreography of it was very practiced and very precise. And if you didn't pay attention, there's a non-zero chance that you were going to get squished by a dropped road case or pinned against a wall, which happened to me one time because somebody moved their hands when they weren't supposed to. And all of a sudden I was pressed against the wall with a 300-pound case in my chest. So this was all important. It's like, pay attention. If you're not suitable for unloading things on a truck, if you can't hold 100 pounds at chest level and lower it to the ground, don't get on the truck. So some of us were designated as loaders. And so we got to help load and unload the truck, which actually was my favorite job. So that gave us, that kind of framed the day. The job was potentially dangerous. There were specific ways to do it right and well, and the road crew are the ones that knew how to do that, and we needed to listen to them. So the lessons that we learned after that were, number one, listen and be alert. Okay. We didn't have cell phones back then to look at, so there was no danger of that, and nobody was going to do their homework, but we did tend to chat and wander off and look at shiny objects. So listen and be alert. Okay. You are going to be needed at any moment. One of the crew is going to grab you, tap you, take your elbow, point at you, and ask you to do something, and you need to be ready to do it. So listen and be alert was the first order of the day. That was the number one thing that we needed to do. The next thing he said was, it sticks with me to this day, is slow and steady gets the job done. Slow and steady gets the job done. Don't be urgent. Don't try and show off by pushing a road case faster or working too quickly. Slow and steady will do the work. Okay. Slow is not lethargic. Slow is careful. Okay. Slow allows you to be precise. Steady means you're not taking breaks. You're continuing to work. You push this case slow and steady to where it needs to be. You go back and get the next one. All right. Keep moving. Slow and steady. Very, very valuable. Very, very valuable lesson for many folks. Get out of the way or help. That was the next thing he said. If you find yourself standing waiting to help and nobody's telling you what to do, get out of the way. Okay. If they want you to help, they will ask you to help, but get out of the way. So you have to pay attention all the time, know where to stand. One of my pet peeves, walking around the city or an airport, are the people who don't know where they are in the moment, and they stop in the middle of a large mass of moving people and look at their phone. Right? Be aware of where you are. So that's what he was telling us. Get out of the way or be helping. The next thing was interesting to me because he said, ask questions, but don't be offended if somebody doesn't have time to answer them for you, because their job is not to train you. Okay. If you don't know how to do something, say, I don't know how to do this. And they have one or two choices. Find somebody who does, or give you some quick instructions to do the bare minimum, but they can't explain to you why to do it that way. They're just going to say, do it like this, pick this up, move this thing. There, you got it. Keep doing that over and over again. So ask questions if you don't know how, but don't be offended, and never act on your own. Don't say, hey, somebody put this here. I think it'd probably go better over there. Don't do that. If they say, put it right here in the middle of the stage, you put it right in the middle of the stage. Don't put it 10 feet upstage or downstage or 10 feet left or right because you think it might be better or be out of the people's way. They told you to put it there for a reason, because there's going to be a pipe cut coming in. There's a truss that's going to be assembled behind it. Something is going to happen. They told you to put it there for a reason. Don't decide for yourself. Be somebody who does what they're told, not somebody who makes work for other people to correct, was, I think, were the exact words. And then biggest lesson of all, and as a theater person, I already knew this, and many of us stagehands were the theater people or theater adjacent people. And the most valuable words in a work environment in theater, no matter what your job is doing, is thank you. And thank you is not about being gracious, though it is. Thank you is about acknowledging an instruction. What happens today? You ask somebody to do something and they say, no problem, or I got your boss, or I'll take care of it. That doesn't translate everywhere. It doesn't mean the same thing to everyone. So in theater, we said, thank you. Okay, I need you to, take that trunk, put it downstage left. Thank you. I say thank you. I push it downstage left. Thank you says I understood the instruction and now I'm going to do it. I'm going to move on. A very common call was we would make stage calls where everybody in the stage, somebody would yell saying, pipe coming in. Pipe coming in means we're bringing in a batten from overhead. It's a 2-inch steel pipe. It's 80 feet long. It will hurt like hell if you walk into it or if it hits you, right? But we've got to bring this pipe in to a certain height so we can attach things to it, pipe coming in. Okay, the response for everybody who is on the stage is thank you. Okay, we're now all aware of that. We all acknowledge that we're aware of that. And if the person calling it out didn't hear enough thank yous, in other words, saw people or didn't hear enough voices for the number of people around them, they're going to call it out again, and they're going to call it out again until they have everybody's attention, because this is a huge safety issue. So thank you is the right acknowledgement. If people acknowledge 5 different ways, it just sounds like mud. The acknowledgement was thank you. So with these instructions, with these simple lessons and some good old work ethic, right, we put together some incredible crews at the university. And we would get national touring shows who were coming to a major college campus, which they often did, but they were used to working in, maybe large union halls or commercial theaters with professional stagehands. And they were coming in with arguably a bunch of inexperienced amateurs. And very often, because of these simple instructions and because of this training, this awareness that we were given, we were told that our load-in time was one of the best they'd ever had, if not the best. Our load-out times were the best, and the crew was as happy as they've ever been with the local crew, the traveling crew, the roadies were very happy with the crew. To get a show set up that is an 8-hour, they're used to an 8-hour load-in, and we get it done in 6 hours, and they now have 2 hours off in the afternoon to go take some time off, go take a shower, go take a nap, whatever it is. That was priceless to these people who traveled for a living. So it wasn't about filling the 8-hour call. It was about getting the job done as efficiently as we could by listening, being alert, slow and steady gets the job done, ask questions, but take direction, all these things. And the thank yous were probably the thing that impressed them the most, because that is the most professional behavior. And even in professional venues, I still don't hear that often enough. to convince me that these are the right people to be working in that space. So there's my story. There's my backstory about, what I understand about what it takes to put a show in, get a show out, and be helpful in that environment. And I carried that through my freelance career when I became an AV technician. When I ran crews, I would often go through the training if I obviously had an inexperienced crew of local stagehands. I did shows on college campuses, corporate meetings, where I'd take the 5 minutes and say, hey guys, here's how you can really help us. Here are the things that you're going to do that are going to really help us today. And that little briefing, they not only do they appreciate it, we all got along better, and often we got done sooner than expected. Now, I want to finish this up by switching roles. Okay, you're now the professionals that are going into an environment where you have a lot of unknown people. We've all done this. We walk in, our 8 stagehands are assembled. Maybe they came from a local supplier. They were booked one-on-one. They're part of a house crew, whatever it might be. What are they looking for? What's going to help them be better for you? And these are the things that you need to do in order to help them elevate themselves to their best work. Most important thing you can do from top to bottom is be organized, but not urgent. Urgency is sloppy. I've worked with urgent crews. We worked with urgent, lighting directors coming in on a touring act, and they were a nightmare. Okay. Organized is way better than urgent. Okay. Be organized. Leave the urgency at home. There's no room for urgency. That's a failure on your ability to plan and know what you're doing. Be mindful, but be decisive. In other words, if you're not sure what step to take next, you've got to figure something out. Oh my goodness, this soffit is 2 feet lower than what I thought it was. We're going to have to make some adjustments. Okay, be mindful about that. Let the team know is going, I need to sort this out. If you guys will continue to do this, I'll make a decision in 2 minutes, make a decision and move on. Okay. So be decisive in what you do. You don't have time to relitigate the entire design of the show. Know your job well enough that you can make the adjustments on the fly. Throughout the day, throughout the load in, throughout the setup, pause, think ahead, and then move. This applies to your hands that know what they're doing. This applies to all of your traveling technicians who are working on the show. This applies to you if you're running the crew. Pause, think ahead, move. Okay, that moment of pausing, looking around, scanning the entire room, seeing what everybody is working on, whether it's in your department or not. Okay, make sure that you're aware of your surroundings. Say, okay, if I'm going to lay these wires down this wall, I'm going to have to get these things moved. Now I know how to give direction to my team. I know what to do next, and we can act. Pause, think ahead, and move. Don't just plow into things. And then the last thing is over-communicate, but be brief. Thank you is over-communicating, but it's very brief. Giving people direction, saying, hey, we have a pipe coming in. I don't need to tell them why that's important. I just need them to acknowledge it so that I can move on. We're going to get this done. These guys are going to do this, then these guys are going to do this. Does everybody understand? Be brief. Over-communicate, say things over, and be brief. People will not be bothered by over-communication if you're brief and to the point. It's part of your pause, think ahead, over-communicate, move. Okay? When you're working with a crew of people, you got 4 people following you around, say, folks, here's what we're going to do next. We're going to go into this closet over here. I'm going to point out a bunch of cases that you need to get. You're going to move them to this room down here. Any questions? Okay, let's go. Boom. Okay. That communication is going to make that little job and task go faster. And we all have to be good at this. And if you're working around people who are not good at this, take note, because they are creating potential problems, stress, communications issues, blowback, okay, that are going to affect the overall quality of your work. You need to be as good as the people that you're expecting to find or hoping to find when you show up on a show site. Likewise, the people on show site, when you're that person, okay, you need to be the person who helps the roadie be their best and not the person who knows more. Because we all know more about something, okay, but unless somebody asks you, keep your mouth shut. So there's my thoughts today. I was reminiscing. I just wanted to share that with you, but I think these are some important lessons that we can all apply. And if you've got some lessons like that you've learned over the years about how to be a helper or how to work with helpers, I'd love to hear them. Shoot me an email. Happy to chat anytime. Thanks for listening, everybody.
If you liked this episode of the Intentional Success Podcast, please leave a review and don't forget to like and subscribe. This podcast has been brought to you by the helpful folks at Mertz Crew.